Every year, in January, I spend a week in the Alps on cross-country skis. And since my level of competence is that of those who practice only 1 week a year, I accept that the most rewarding moment always occurs at the end of the activity, when in sportswear I approach the dessert buffet offered by my hotel. The experience, along with many others all characterized by a low level of competence, represents a typical example of what Seth Godin calls the dip. The dip is a depression in the road surface, caused by a short descent followed by a climb. It is indicated by a danger sign because it is easy to lose control and exit the roadway. Seth Godin uses the metaphor of the dip to remind us that every skill worth of being acquired requires an apprenticeship period, which can be longer or shorter depending on the difficulty of what we have decided to learn. The acquisition of any type of competence follows a curve with a trend similar to that shown in figure. The points in the diagram represents how much results you get as function of effort. When you start a new activity, such as learning to play the piano or to program a computer, it gives you a lot of satisfaction and fun. The experience is interesting and you get a lot of positive feedback from those around you. In the first period, in the face of a limited commitment, learning is very fast and this motivates you to continue. And then, at a certain point, the motivation begins to wane. In a few lessons, I learned to introduce myself and to ask for some information in a foreign language. But now, in order to move on, I have to study some complicated grammar rule, and the experience turns out to be much more frustrating. In the face of a considerable increase in commitment, the improvement is very limited. My ability to converse in the new language is maintained at a basic level. It is at this stage that the most dropouts occur. I've reached the dip. Only those who have the perseverance to continue, accepting to live with a long period in which few results are collected in the face of a lot of work, can achieve excellence. At this point, a virtuous circle is triggered again, in which precisely because one dominates his own subject, small increases in commitment lead to great improvements in competence. The size of the dip varies according to the competence to be developed. It is short for learning how to ride a bicycle, medium to get a driving license, very wide to be able to race in Formula 1. Some studies suggest that to become a master in any kind of profession, you need to practice 10,000 hours, which roughly translates into 10 years of apprenticeship. This applies to sushi masters, accomplished engineers, teachers, and yes, project managers too. The wider the dip, the smaller the number of those who can cross it unscattered. In the case of skills that are difficult to acquire, the shape of the curve determines a breakdown of practitioners into three categories. The many who try. We all fall into this group when we start going to a gym, adopt a new time management method, or take a leadership class, and then we decide to give it up. If within certain limits this type of experimentation is necessary to identify our attitudes, When the frequency of abandonment becomes excessive, the experimentation turns into a waste of time and energy that prevent us from focusing on the few areas where we could instead achieve excellence. The several who get by. This is the level of competence I have decided to live with cross-country ski. The fact is that my motivation to improve is not such as to make me commit further. Getting by is probably the most widespread level of competence. It is a condition that, while it may be acceptable for a hobby, is much less so for a professional competence. Unfortunately, it is the abundance of this type of experts that ends up discrediting some professions. The very few who achieve excellence. Precisely because it's filled with difficulties, only a few are able to overcome the dip and become true experts. These people are the ones we turn to when we look for the best with a particular skill. Since there are few real experts in each area of expertise, those who come to be part of the last category are amply rewarded. And the more excellence is scarce, the more its value is destined to increase. However, it's worth noticing that when we talk about the best, we are actually referring to a limited area, that of the world in which we live. So, if I try to hire a painter to refresh my house, I look for the best in the neighborhood. While, when Pope Julius II had to embellish the vault of the Sistine Chapel, he had no doubts in calling Michelangelo. Always aim to be the best in your word of choice.